Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited about today's episode and today's featured guest and fellow entrepreneur because not only do I absolutely love the business that he has built, but truth be told, this is an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. You're going to see that even far beyond his existing business, this is someone who supports and helps to accelerate the growth of other businesses and entrepreneurs as well. So I'm so excited for all of you to learn, all of us, I'm going to include myself there, all of us to learn from him today. Let me introduce you to Davis Wilkinson. Inspired by his mother's experience with probate, Davis quit his job in big tech and worked as a receptionist at a funeral home and an observer at a financial advisory, immersing himself in the estate administration world firsthand. Those experiences revealed just how broken the probate process is for grieving families and fortified his resolve to build Heirloom, which I know that as soon as every single one of you hears about Heirloom, you're going to think, gosh, yeah, why did this not exist 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Well, you're going to see how Davis and his team have used really cool technology to make all of this possible. Davis draws from his experience in product management, software, business development, and venture capital. Prior to Heirloom, Davis was on the founding team of Data Fleets, which is a data privacy startup acquired for more than $100 million in 2022. Aside from his own business, he's also an investor in and an advisor to more than 20 tech companies. He holds a degree in economics from Harvard University. So being from Boston, I can comfortably say he is wicked smart. So I'm excited about this one. Let's dive straight into my interview with Davis Wilkinson. All right, Davis, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. I'm so excited to speak with you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Heck yes, we are so glad to have you here. I can't wait to talk about Heirloom. It's so hard for me to not jump straight in there, Davis. But first, I want to put the spotlight on you. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Davis? How did you start doing all these cool things?
You know, when I saw my mother going through probate for my brother who had passed away, it just seemed like the sort of problem that someone in the midst of grief and mourning shouldn't have to do on their own without any help. And so we're just really excited about our mission at Heirloom, and we hope to make people's lives just a little bit easier in the midst of grief.
Yeah, and that is an important mission in Davis, especially in today's world, which we have so much amazing technology at our fingertips. We have the ability to build things that make the world a better place. And I would argue that your business and your work, that is exactly a shining example of what the positive force of technology and entrepreneurship, what it can do in the world. So I'm going to have you. There's no one better on this planet to introduce listeners to Heirloom than you. And I love that I saw somewhere described as the TurboTax of estate settlement, which I feel like right there, listeners are going to go, well, yeah, of course we need that. We all experience that in tax season, which you and I are having the conversation right in the thick of there. So introduce listeners to Heirloom.
Heirloom is very simple. Heirloom is probate software for estate executors, and we help with three big problems. The first problem you have when you're an estate executor is you got to find all your loved ones' assets, and we have tools to make that automatic. The second big problem you have is you just got to figure out what to do. Estate settlement is complicated. It's like a big new project, and most estate executors have never really heard of probate before they get this job. And so we have personalized guides that make the process simple, kind of like TurboTax, where there's personalized step-by-step guidance, and we do automations on the back end to save you time, save you confusion. And then the third big problem we help with, among others, is just communication. You'll find so many executors have a big communication task, keeping their siblings, other beneficiaries, service providers like accountants in the loop. And we make all that simple with portals and things like that automate the communication problem.
Yeah, I love that. Davis, I'm obviously, in the role that I have as the host of this podcast, I'm obviously a sucker for origin stories. You've generously and transparently and openly shared with us part of your inspiration. But what I'm always fascinated by is the moment of decision, from you seeing your mom go through this and recognizing the very real feelings involved, the very real obstacles involved. You didn't just witness that and say, gosh, I wish it was different. You actually decided to do something about it. And of course, to build Heirloom. What did that decision point look like?
This will be a little bit of a longer response, but I think it helps to have some context. So my brother passed away when I was 14, and I saw my mother go through estate settlement. It wasn't formal probate, but sometimes we casually refer to estate settlement as probate, just when I was a kid. And then fast forward 15 more years, and I had just been a part of a startup that was acquired, and I knew I was ready to move on to my next thing. And so this is going to sound dramatic, but it's the truth. I went on a week-long camping trip to Central Oregon with my dog, and I brought a book called Designing Your Life. And I read it, and I did a lot of different mental exercises, trying to identify different problem spaces I cared about that I wanted to innovate in. And somehow, some way, this, story, this memory of my mother popped in my head. And so I started doing a lot of different discovery work, interviews with folks who had been through the process. And then, I just decided, if there ever were a time and a problem that I wanted to dedicate my career to, this was the one. So I quit, and I moved to Austin, Texas from Portland, Oregon, and got a job as a receptionist at a funeral home, just trying to get to know the industry.
Davis, hearing you say that, and I'm so appreciative of you taking us back to that moment. What I really hear is that two things in particular is that, one, you were doing self-reflection on a personal level. Obviously, there was a very successful exit from the startup that you had worked at. And then secondly, what I hear is that you looked for alignment personally, as well as what your business was going to look like. And so I think that far too many people, when they think of entrepreneurship, and obviously a big motivator for a lot of people to get into entrepreneurship is freedom, whether that be financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, so many different options there. But I really appreciate that two-pronged approach that I'm hearing, and I'd love for you to take us there. What were the questions that you were asking of yourself? I've been there as well in between businesses where I think, what's next? And I think too many people look for the next dollar. You clearly sought out alignment. What are those questions? What do those revelations and insights look like?
Oh man. So there were a list of many dozens of questions in this book I had mentioned that kind of walked me through the soul searching exercises I needed. If I can try and remember a few of them, I remember a framing of, instead of what career do you want, what problems do you want to work on? And I thought that was a helpful mind shift, a different framing that guided how I wanted to, think about my own career. And, given my background in venture and in startups prior, I had noticed anecdotally there was just a difference between founders who had founder market fit and founders who it seemed were more interested in just making money. There's nothing wrong in and of itself of, starting a startup, trying to get financial and time freedom for your life. That's great. I want that too. But I think I just decided also for myself, I wanted to work on a problem that was meaningful, that I felt like genuinely would make the world just a little bit of a nicer place to live in. And I landed on this problem space.
Yeah, I love that, especially because not only was your career in big tech, but obviously in today's day and age, you and I are having this conversation of Q1 in 2026. Davis, it's never been easier than ever before to use technology for good. There are so many incredible tools at our fingertips. Everyday people, let alone someone that has the tech background that you do. When you look at the landscape of where we are tech-wise, what's your assessment of that macro climate of, holy cow, now there's vibe coding, now there's AI to assist us as a brainstorming partner and to help us in so many different ways. Give us your vantage point there.
Oh man, I can only speak to my experience. I will say having tools like Cursor, Figma Make, Lovable, Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude. These are tools I use with every other breath in my day-to-day work. And the speed at which we're developing, I would say, so my co-founder Brady, he's amazing. I hope we can talk about him in this conversation as well. He and I developing software together, both of us coding, we're about as productive in terms of velocity as my team. We had maybe 20 different engineers working on products I was helping to lead. It's probably about the same. So that's about a 10x multiple in velocity just based on what these tools can do for you. And that's just one small example in software. It runs the gamut from all the different functions in a company, from pilot and other sorts of accounting services, marketing technologies. We use Profound to help us think through AEO, and using that technology. Just on Saturday night, I wrote, I think it was 67 blogs that would be optimized for AEO, like the SEO of artificial intelligence. And that was just done in a few hours. And I hope these examples kind of paint the picture of, hey, you can really do this. I think Brady's brilliant. I think I'm a regular Joe. And still these technologies enable just innovation and speed at scale that you never could have imagined before. And it also makes it more efficient. You don't need many, many millions of dollars to build a company anymore. You need an idea, some elbow grease, and some thoughtfulness, and really wonders can happen with these tools that are out there now.
Yeah, Davis, one thing I'm always cognizant of when I'm on the air is how different listeners' ears will perk up over different topics. And hearing that from someone with your background, hearing the productivity gains, hearing what's possible that you guys can build internally, it might set some alarm bells off in some minds. Obviously, you and I very much love technology, but some people might say, well, Davis, does that mean that it's going to replace engineering teams? Does that mean it's going to replace a lot of those things? And I love the fact that you've already called out that, well, it also makes it more accessible. Now you no longer need these huge budgets, but talk to us about that human capital component, because I think you have an interesting vantage point there, especially with your fellow economics major hat on, is that I know that you probably have some really interesting insights from that technology world, from the more macro and societal level, and then of course the way that you guys are building internally. What's your answer for some critics who are skeptical about the impact of AI?
I'm not in a position to speak to the macro perspective of AI on labor markets. I don't even consider myself an expert in AI, even though I use the tools constantly. All I am is an expert in my own experience and Heirloom's experience. And I would say we are hiring maybe fewer engineers than we otherwise would have. That said, we do see the value of people being in the loop of AI systems. We review every line of code. We review every blog we write. We think there is value in customer-facing experiences that involve people. And while the fabric of how we build software, I think, is changing and will change without a doubt, I am optimistic that there are going to be moments and opportunities of abundance for so many different people in different industries that these technologies will enable.
Yeah, so well said. I really appreciate that. It's something that I've been echoing here on the air quite a bit this year, is that we have been hiring behind the scenes at my companies more than ever before because of those reasons that you mentioned. If somebody hears you say, oh, we can generate dozens of blog posts within an hour these days, where my head goes, and you just revealed some of that with that answer there, is, well, now a human gets to play with and optimize and improve upon dozens of blog posts that previously previously, maybe one person would have taken half a day to write. Now we can actually just optimize our output. So I'm really appreciative of that perspective. I want to go there because you've mentioned Brady a few times, and I find that co-founder relationships are incredibly important. Until someone has experienced it, they probably don't realize how much it is like marriage. You are making big decisions together. You are managing money together. You are doing so many different things. Davis, take us behind the scenes. One, how did the business partnership with Brady come about? And then two, how has that experience been? How has it been shaped? How do you complement each other? I'd love for you to take us there.
Yes, I feel very fortunate to have found Brady as a co-founder. So I've never been married before, but I have heard the analogy that it's like marriage. And just as an observer to loved ones who I know who are married and what they tell me, it does resonate with my experience as a co-founder, and it is great. I will say, going into co-founding Heirloom, I knew I didn't want to have a shotgun wedding, to extend the analogy. I wanted to co-found with someone I knew very well over a long time period. So I created a list of a dozen or so people who I felt like had the experience, the personality, compatibility wise, the capabilities, the fire in the belly, so to speak, the drive, and started talking to as many of them as I could. And enter Brady. We've known each other since high school. We were in the same friend group in high school, and he's had an amazing career. His first exit as a young engineer in college was his first success in his career. And then, he worked his way up as an engineer, quickly became a senior architect in many different companies, has helped build products serving hundreds of thousands of users, billions of dollars in revenue, is a repeat founder. And I feel so grateful that he wanted to join Heirloom as a co-founder. And it just helps that we like each other. It helps that we have so many values and interests in common, and we're just friends. And I truly, I'm not just saying this because I'm on camera. It's been great so far, and I'm so grateful for our partnership. And hopefully Heirloom does really well as a company and has a good impact on a lot of people's lives. And if we do something after Heirloom, I hope it's Brady and I together innovating again.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely love the analogies, Davis, because it certainly is true. As someone who also interviews hundreds of founders, it's something that all these conversations, I feel like we could snip what you just said. And yes, that is good dating advice. That is good relationship advice. It's all relevant here. So I'd love for you to take us behind the scenes, because part of that is obviously alignment. And so as two founders, I would imagine that part of you talking to Brady initially is you pitched him on the idea of, hey, here's what Heirloom is, here's why Heirloom is, and then the two of you had to chart out a course of what does it look like to bring it to life, and a lot of decisions get made there. You've teased already some of the few features that are already baked into Heirloom. Automated asset discovery, I think that's so brilliant. I've always wondered, what do we do in those unfortunate times where we wonder, especially Davis, you and I as business owners, we have accounts everywhere. We have so many different types of accounts. I feel really bad for any family member who has to start to make sense of all those types of things. Probate process management, a beneficiary portal. There's so many ingredients that are baked into Heirloom today. How does that alignment come about? Is it a lot of sticky notes on the wall, and the two of you hash that out and you prioritize things? What do those executive alignment conversations look like?
Yeah, so a few things there. First, I'll talk about how Brady and I found just co-founder alignment in him joining Heirloom. And then I'll talk about the product priority process, road mapping, the software development lifecycle, things of that nature. So when Brady and I were first talking, I shared with him my story of my family and what it was like for us to see estate settlement firsthand. And then he started talking around, doing his own due diligence, and he actually had a family member who had recently been through a really difficult probate process as well, and saw firsthand that, hey, probate can take hundreds of hours for an estate executor to do. It can take many dozens of thousands of dollars, 12 to 18 months or longer. And so him learning anecdotally, this is a problem, but also starting to see empirically all the different data, really, he started to get invested personally. And so we spent, I think it was a couple months, hanging out a lot. There's a lot of different questionnaires online. I think First Round Capital has a famous one where you can go through, quite literally, I think it's dozens, if not 100 or more, of different questions you can ask a prospective business partner, a co-founder, just ensuring there's alignment. Hey, what do we think success looks like? What does hard work look like? If we disagree, what do we do? How should we compensate ourselves? What does responsibility and professionalism look like in a startup environment? All of these different sorts of questions. And we went through all of them, quite literally, just to ensure we were talking about the hard things first and driving toward alignment. And then to your second part of questions, how does one prioritize something as big as the problem space as probate? I think the best answer is experimentation. So the way I view Heirloom is I view us as a machine for experimentation and learning. I'm not an estate attorney. Brady's not an estate attorney. We have to learn as fast as we can. What are the problems people really care about? What of those problems can technology solve? And what of these problems are people willing to pay for, spend their time on? And so what we do is we run quite literally hundreds of experiments of messaging, of different product features, to see what people click on, what they think matters to them. And then we let that data drive us as we, for lack of a better word, put the sticky notes up on the roadmap board on, hey, what should we start building today?
Davis, the way you talk about that, what I hear as someone who talks to founders for a living is a deep level of intentionality from you guys collectively, from you guys individually. I mean, the fact that you took a job as a receptionist at a funeral home, it shows the depth at which you want to understand the people that you serve, the process that you unlock. It shows a lot of intentionality at a lot of different levels. I've got to ask you, when we talk about that level of intentionality, I find that so many people, they believe that they have the answers. And it sounds to me, and actually you've even said it out loud a few times in our conversation today of, well, I actually don't have many or maybe even any answers. We're going to experiment. I don't know the universal truths across the board. And to me, that level of intentionality and curiosity, that is an entrepreneurial strength that you guys exhibit, again, as co-founders, but also as an organization. Talk to us about that in a world where, and you also help and support other entrepreneurs inside of their businesses as well. In a world where a lot of entrepreneurs think that means we need to have the answers, I'd love for you to share with us your mindset about that curiosity and openness and eager to experiment, because I think that that's definitely one of your superpowers.
Thanks. I can't speak for all founders. I do think some founders are just geniuses who get a lot right in and of themselves. That's not me. But what I do believe that Brady and I are really good at is being curious. And so there are hard skills and there are soft skills that can help a founder be curious and learn fast. Because if you really boil down, what leads to a startup being successful, perhaps one of its most important abilities is the ability to learn fast and be agile. Because startup world, you're competing against, large enterprises that have been around sometimes for hundreds of years, quite literally. They have, name and brand recognition. They have a lot of subject matter expertise. And so what advantages can a startup have against companies like that, the incumbents, if you will? And I think one of the key advantages startups can have, if they're willing to lean into it, is they can move fast, they can learn fast, and they can pivot every other day. And so given those principles in mind, going back to my hard skills and soft skills thing, if you have the hard skills to be able to build prototypes quickly, get them in front of customers and prospects, learn how to prioritize based on the learnings of those different prototypes, those things are great arrows in your quiver, so to speak, to help you start getting more shots on goal. I'm mixing my metaphors there, forgive me. But just to make this clear, what this looks like is, running thousands of different experiments on for example, what keywords, what digital assets like images and videos, what sorts of ads on Google and Meta are most likely to perform. So that's the scale of experimentation I'm talking about. And then on the soft skills side, being a founder, I think it's really humbling. And I'm not saying this to be coy. I promise you I'm not guilty of false humility when I say this. Like, you are going to be wrong so often. You're going to be wrong in saying things you say to your co-founder, and it's going to be embarrassing. You're going to be wrong on your first product that you try to sell, and just accepting that reality, I think, is really liberating. And then what it comes to then is you realize, oh wow, okay, I've got a couple years of runway. I'm wrong a lot. What can I do to maximize the chance of success? Well, if I have a couple years of runway and I'm run a lot, maybe I just need as many shots on goal as I can get. So I just need to experiment. And then all of a sudden you realize, wow, I'm more of a scientist than I am a visionary. I'm just throwing stuff out there and seeing what works. And I want to be clear, this is not impetuous. You're not doing risky things that might harm your customers. By no means are we doing that. We're trying to be thoughtful, but we're being thoughtful on a foundation of understanding that this is an empirical exercise. We're scientists, not visionaries. We're trying to find what works and what actually helps people. And in the world of innovation, in the world of creating new things, the truth is, like, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to make a lot of mistakes because a lot of these things just have never existed before. And that involves a messy creative process. And it's really kind of fun when you accept that reality.
Oh, so well said all across the board. And I'll absolutely take the mixed metaphors because I'm also going to add chess into this. I love this concept from the chess world where grandmasters always say you either win or you learn. And so when you look at everything through that lens, there's no losing. You either win or you learn. And I really love that mindset. Davis, I knew time would fly by with you today, but I want to squeeze in two more questions because you brought up some of your different forms that you guys are playing around with advertising and marketing because, again, that's always an experiment. Spoiler alert for all of you listeners, if you talk to founders off air, every single bit of marketing and sales and advertising, it's all one giant experiment. So Davis, you've already brought up AEO through a content marketing strategy. You've already brought up paid ads. What I find so fascinating about Heirloom's marketing questions is that every business, we need to figure out who it is that we serve. You guys need to also answer the question of when do we serve them? How do we catch them in that moment where they need Heirloom? How do you guys work through that big marketing question?
Forgive me for being redundant, it's experimentation again. And so we have direct methods of learning. We also have channel partnerships, some which have been signed and others which will come out in the near future. So direct marketing, in effect, we're running Google ads to find people who have indicated intent. That is, they're searching something relevant to probate. So for example, I'm an estate executor, what do I do? Or how can I find my loved one's inheritance? What does probate mean? So we'll pop up on ads when people are searching things like that. And then channel partnerships, we're grateful to say we've partnered with probateexecutors.com, which is a company that provides a lot of different resources to estate executors. And they're promoting us as a preferred partner, a tool they've vetted can really help. And then finally, we have other different sorts of partnerships which we're looking into with financial advisors, with estate attorneys themselves, just trying to find out, hey, which of all of these different approaches is most likely to catch someone's ear, and after which they're most likely to purchase Heirloom.
Yes, I love that. And especially for all you listeners out there looking for those success in the success leaves clues, hear that. Davis especially called out intent-based marketing. There's a lot of different forms of marketing. You could do interest-based marketing, intent-based marketing. Go deep into that rabbit hole, because that's a key thing to ask that question of answering the when as well. Is that when I'm scrolling through Instagram, no advertiser knows what it is that I'm potentially thinking about or looking for in that moment. Heck, I don't even know. But when we are all searching on Google, that's revealing so much of the intent behind our immediate action. So Davis, really appreciate you geeking out with us on the air about marketing as well. And I'm really excited to see which direction you take this last question in, because it's super broad. You can go in any direction. And that is quite simply, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys. And as a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing you want to leave them with today?
So I can only speak to my own experience. Entrepreneurship is fun and stressful. So if I could speak to more of the softer skills and the softer side, I have found that really driving toward meditation and, becoming aware of what can I control, what can't I control? What am I thinking about all day? Which of this is fear-based rumination and which of this is actually productive problem solving? Am I worrying about the future too much? Am I worrying about the past too much? And instead, should I just be in the present and think about what I can do today, this hour, this moment to try and move the needle for my team? And it's trite perhaps, but really driving toward mindfulness has been an amazing escape. It's an amazing solution for me as I navigate kind of the emotional burden of being a founder. And I'd invite folks to think about that for themselves as well.
Yes, I'm so appreciative. Davis, it's not always the advice that we hear on a daily or a weekly basis, but it's important advice. And that's the real stuff of what it means to be a founder. So I'm so appreciative of you bringing that advice for all of our listeners around the world. I'm also very excited for them to go deeper and to see Heirloom with their own eyes, because if there's one thing, I love podcasting, but I wish it was a more visual platform. I wish people could see Heirloom in action as we're talking about it. I wish we could screen share, but in lieu of that, I'd love for you to tease listeners with where they can go from here to find all the amazing work that you and Brady and your entire team are up to with Heirloom.
Yes, you can find us at heirloom.care, or you can just Google Heirloom probate software and we'll pop up. We've had 500 plus account signups in the last couple weeks. We have, multiple distribution partnerships. You are going to hear from us. We're growing so fast. We're grateful for that. And I just want to finish with a thank you to you, Brian. Really means a lot that you're helping us on our mission to try and make probate a little easier for folks. So grateful for it.
Davis, thank you. Honestly, it means the world to me that you've taken time out of your busy and growing schedule to be here with us today. And obviously, for me, it's such a shining example. I called it out at the top of today's episode of a force for good through entrepreneurship. And I'm so grateful for all the work that you and your team are doing. And listeners, you already know the drill. We're going to drop that link down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You can click right on through to heirloom.care. So if you're driving, if you're at the gym, if you're in the shower, heck, who knows where people are listening, but no matter where, you can click right on through. We're also linking to Davis's personal LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to him, if you are a potential partner, or you want to connect him with a potential partner, do not be shy about having amazing entrepreneurs in your audience. So Davis, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Brian. It's been a pleasure.